It was a cold February morning when Aunt Eleanor arrived at her old house in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. The sky was gray, as if she knew what was coming. She stepped off the bus with a worn suitcase and a steady gaze, despite her age. The house where she had grown up with her sister now belonged to her grown nephews and nieces. They didn't know that day would change their lives forever. Eleanor wasn't the frail type, even though she was over 75. Her eyes were alert, and her posture was worthy of someone who had weathered many storms. The past had taught her to walk alone, but longing for her family spoke louder. After her younger sister's death, she decided to return. After all, blood is blood, or at least, that's what she believed. Before I continue, I want to say that I ask God to bless you with all His infinite love, giving you much health, peace, joy and faith, for we can never lose faith in God, for He will never abandon us, for His love is eternal and infinite. I also take this opportunity to ask that you like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps me a lot, thank you. Now, take a deep breath, because what comes next will move you. Her nephews, Josh, Emily, and Rebecca, didn't expect to see her. They knew her only from their mother's stories. Aunt Eleanor was eccentric, they said. She lived far away, she almost never called. When they saw her at the door, with a small smile and a tired look, they hesitated. She hugged them as if no time had passed. Josh, the oldest, faked a smile. Emily, always more sensitive, hugged her with unshed tears. Rebecca stood there, arms crossed, suspicious. She wants something, he murmured. But no one dared ask why she was there. At least, not yet. That night, Eleanor settled into her sister's old room. She touched every object with care, as if searching for the past in every detail. An old photograph, a wooden rosary, and a framed photo of her 3 nephews as children. She sighed deeply. How many memories can one room hold? She thought. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, the nephews were talking quietly. How long will she stay? Josh asked. Does she have anywhere to live? Emily asked worriedly. Rebecca was blunt. She should be in a nursing home. An uncomfortable silence fell. The trial had begun, even without a clear reason. The next day, Eleanor woke early and made pancakes. The house filled with the scent of vanilla and cinnamon. Emily smiled when she came downstairs and saw the table set. Wow, just like Mom used to make, she said, overcome with emotion. Eleanor just smiled, her eyes teary but firm. There was love in that kitchen, even if it was fleeting. Rebecca came in and didn't even say thank you. She grabbed her phone and scrolled through it while she ate. Josh just said, "Good morning," and left. Eleanor didn't seem bothered. She knew that time turns hearts to stone, but she also knew that stones can crack. All in due time. Over the next few days, she began organizing the house. She washed curtains, tended the garden, and cleaned the basement. Emily helped her, smiling with each story she told about her mother's youth. Did you know your mother ran off to Michigan with a boy when she was 17? Emily's eyes widened. Really? Eleanor laughed. But she came back the next day. Your grandfather nearly fainted. These stories began to create invisible bonds between the two. Emily spent more time with her aunt, while Josh and Rebecca drifted apart. She's trying to manipulate us, Rebecca said one night. Josh just shook his head. But what if she just wants to stay with us for a while? She's old. Rebecca replied dryly. Old, yes. Naive, no. Eleanor seemed to notice the stares and whispers, but she never complained. She kept herself busy, like someone planting something they know will take a while to bloom. One day, in the attic, she found a box of letters. They were all from her nephew's mother. Letters that had never been sent. One, in particular, caught her eye. It was addressed to her. Her sister had written it secretly, shortly before her death. The letter spoke of forgiveness, of past mistakes, and of one wish, that her children would grow up with open hearts. Eleanor wept silently. That letter would change everything, but it wasn't time to show it yet. Meanwhile, Rebecca began investigating. Why is she back now? She asked herself. She scoured Eleanor's social media accounts, tried to find records. Nothing. It was as if her aunt had disappeared for 20 years. She must be hiding something, she muttered. Suspicion turned to obsession. Josh, on the other hand, was worried about finances. He was the only one working outside the home, supporting the three of them in the inherited house. Another mouth to feed, he thought. He tried to talk to Emily, but she was becoming increasingly attached to her aunt. She just wants some love, Josh. What's the harm in that? But Josh didn't see it that way. He knew something no one else did. The house was about to be sold. He had signed the documents in secret, desperate for cash. With Eleanor there, everything could fall apart. She can't know about this, he thought. And that was when the first major conflict arose. One night at dinner, Eleanor told me about her life in rural Texas. She spoke of her sewing shop, her husband who died young, and the loneliness of her last years. Emily listened as if it were a movie. Rebecca just said, But when Eleanor mentioned her husband's name, George, something changed. Josh nearly dropped his glass. George? Which George? Eleanor paused. George Wilson. You knew him. Josh looked away. Rebecca's eyes widened. Emily, confused, asked, Who's George? A silence fell over the table. The connection between Josh and that name. It was something no one expected. In the following days, Josh avoided his aunt. Eleanor pretended not to notice, but she knew. Rebecca increased her vigilance. Emily tried to keep the peace, but felt the tension growing. That's when Eleanor decided to go for a walk and stopped by the local church. Inside, she lit a candle, said a silent prayer, asked for wisdom. The pastor, a sweet woman named Mildred, approached. They talked for a few minutes. God has a time for everything, my child, she said. Eleanor smiled. But sometimes we need to plant in dry soil. The pastor took her hand. Even in the desert, God makes flowers bloom. On the way back, Eleanor passed the old market where she used to shop when she was young. She saw it was closed. A sign said, For sale. She stopped there for a few minutes. There were too many memories on that sidewalk. It was as if time were trying to speak to her. And she heard it, every whisper of the past. When she got home, she found Rebecca rummaging through her belongings. What are you doing? She asked calmly. Rebecca looked embarrassed. Just looking for a charger. Eleanor just nodded and left the room. But something inside her told her, this was just the beginning. A storm was brewing. Emily, for her part, began visiting the cemetery where her mother was buried. She brought flowers. She prayed. And she often thought about how her aunt's presence seemed to awaken dormant memories. One day, while leaving a rose, she felt something strange, as if she were being watched. She turned around, but saw no one. The tension in the house was rising. Small disagreements turned into arguments. Josh almost fought with Rebecca over a comment about Eleanor. Emily tried to intervene, but tempers were high. Eleanor listened silently from her room. Sometimes tears fell. Other times, she just smiled sadly. One night, she made an apple cake, as she had with her sister. She left it on the table with a note, to remind us of what we once were. The next day, no one touched the cake. Only Emily ate a slice. The gesture seemed to have gone unnoticed. But something about that phrase stuck with Josh. The atmosphere grew so heavy that Eleanor began leaving the house more. She visited the local orphanage, helped out at church, and once a week baked bread for a shelter. That woman won't stop, Rebecca muttered irritably. She's trying to be a saint. But Emily saw otherwise. Maybe she just wants to feel alive. Eleanor knew her presence was uncomfortable. But she also knew she had something to fulfill there. A purpose that went beyond acceptance. The family's past hid more than anyone imagined. And within her, a dormant truth began to gain strength. Because sometimes, silence holds the deepest secret. It was one rainy morning that everything began to change. Rebecca blurted out a venomous sentence at the breakfast table. Funny how the house has gotten more crowded, and emptier at the same time. Emily stopped stirring her tea. Eleanor just smiled, as if she'd heard worse. But inside, her heart felt it. Josh started leaving for work earlier. He avoided staying home. He avoided his aunt. He avoided facing his own ghosts. Eleanor noticed. Every step he took around the house seemed more distant. One day, he forgot his wallet. She picked it up and saw a folded sheet of paper with a strange contract and a familiar signature. On the paper was Josh's name and a proposal to sell the house to a local developer. Eleanor's blood ran cold. That explained his nervousness. But she remained silent, for now. I knew that speaking too soon was like picking unripe fruit. But the taste of the truth was already sour. Rebecca began locking her bedroom door even during the day. Emily began spending more time outside, visiting church with Eleanor. And Josh, increasingly somber. One night, Eleanor tried to break the ice with an old board game the children used to play with their mother. Only Emily sat at the table. "Remember when Mom made us play this every Saturday night?" Emily said, her eyes welling up. Eleanor nodded. "She always let you win." Emily laughed. Josh walked right past. Rebecca walked into the kitchen, took in the scene, and blurted out, "It's like we're in a museum." She slammed the door. The next morning, the weather was freezing, and not because of the weather. Eleanor offered to do everyone's laundry. Rebecca replied, "My dresses aren't old, okay?" Eleanor pretended not to hear. Emily apologized for her sister. Josh. He left without breakfast. And for the first time, Eleanor considered leaving. But something inside her told her to stay. It was like a mission whispered by God. An invisible but urgent mission. Every time she thought about leaving, she remembered her sister's face. And the letter hidden in the closet. She hadn't revealed its contents yet. And perhaps that was the thread that still held her there. One Saturday afternoon, Emily found Eleanor in the garden, praying. She sat beside her and waited. "You pray a lot, Auntie." Eleanor smiled. "It's the only conversation I know someone always listens to." Emily took her hand. "I pray too. But sometimes, I feel like God is far away." Eleanor replied, "It's us who distance ourselves." Meanwhile, Rebecca watched everything through the window. She found this approach strange. "Auntie Saint," she would say sarcastically. Josh, on the other hand, began receiving mysterious calls. He always left the room when the phone rang. And more than once, Eleanor heard him speaking softly, with a tense tone. Something was about to explode. It was one night, during an impromptu dinner, that the first spark caught fire. Rebecca complained about the food. Again. "This soup tastes like a hospital." Eleanor, calm as ever, replied, "Maybe God is trying to heal what you don't even know is sick." Silence. A piercing silence. Josh dropped his spoon. Emily swallowed hard. Rebecca stood up. "Enough. This woman talks like she's Jesus Christ." Eleanor took a deep breath. "If I could be like him, even just a little bit, I'd be happy." Rebecca stormed out of the kitchen. And Emily began to see her aunt in a different light. The next day, Eleanor decided to visit the pastor of the local Baptist church. Emily went along. She told him about the conflicts, without naming names. The pastor listened patiently. In the end, he said something that resonated in her heart. "Sometimes evil doesn't come from outside. It starts inside our homes." Eleanor understood. When she returned, she found the front door ajar. And inside the living room, her photo albums scattered across the floor. Photos torn. Memories destroyed. A silent, but loud, message. Emily ran to help. Josh appeared, startled. Rebecca. She was in the room. Or was pretending to be. Eleanor calmly pieced together the pieces. Each recovered photograph was like a thread pulled from the past. One showed her sister with Emily in her arms. Another showed Josh with scraped knees, and she tending to them. And one, almost forgotten, showed a young Rebecca holding her hand in the park. "What happened to you?" she murmured. Emily cried. "I'm sorry, Auntie. I don't know what's happening to us." Eleanor replied tenderly, "It's what happens when we forget to forgive." But there was something more. That destruction felt like a warning. And maybe it was just the beginning. The past was trying to come back. And it wouldn't knock on the door. In the days that followed, Rebecca began having nightmares. She woke up screaming. She claimed to see her mother in her dreams, crying. "She was telling me to stop, but I don't know why," she said desperately. Josh said nothing. Emily began praying with Eleanor every night. And, without realizing it, a new spirit appeared in the house. But the crack grew. Josh began sleeping outside. Rebecca began leaving without saying where she was going. Eleanor kept the home afloat with her calm presence. She cooked, cleaned, prayed. But she knew something was about to crumble. When the foundation is cracked, the whole building shakes, she thought. One morning, Emily received a strange letter. No return address. Inside, just a note, "Ask about George." She took the paper to Eleanor. Her aunt read it and turned pale. She put it in her pocket. "I'll explain later." But Emily insisted. Eleanor looked her in the eye. Not everything can be revealed at the wrong time. Later, Eleanor went to the attic. She rummaged through an old locked box. Inside was a photo of her with George. And another woman. It wasn't her sister. It was Josh's mother. "Oh my God," she murmured. The pieces were beginning to fit together. But the puzzle was still incomplete. And the pieces were scattered across wounded hearts. Rebecca, unknowingly, could hear everything from upstairs. It sparked something in her. A fear. A secret. A vague memory. It was as if everything was about to be revealed. And she wasn't ready. No one was. Least of all Josh, who at that moment was signing a final document with the construction company. Meanwhile, Emily began to jot down Eleanor's stories in a notebook. "I want to keep them all. Just in case one day," she said. Eleanor smiled. Stories are seeds. Some germinate instantly. Others take years. And she knew there were seeds there, ready to break through the soil. Real seeds. Josh returned early that night. The house was quiet. As he entered the living room, he saw the Bible open on the table. A verse highlighted in red, "There is nothing covered up that will not be revealed." He closed the book, startled. And for the first time, he felt he was being watched. The next day, tensions boiled over. Rebecca confronted Eleanor. "What do you really want? This house? Us?" Eleanor stood firm. "I want you to remember who you are." Rebecca laughed nervously. "You're just an old woman lost in time." Eleanor replied, "Sometimes it's the oldest who carries the compass." Emily tried to intervene. Josh remained silent. Eleanor then said, "You're walking toward the abyss, and you don't even realize it. But God can still show you another path." Rebecca left in tears. Emily cried too. And Josh just walked away without looking back. But that moment planted something. That early morning, a storm rolled over Cedar Rapids. Thunder rattled the windows. Eleanor, alone in the living room, prayed. Outside, someone watched the house across the street. A car stopped, headlights off. And inside, a call was being made. A judge answered. "Is it time?" he asked. "Yes," the voice replied. It was on a cloudy afternoon that Eleanor decided to open the box from her past. She sat with Emily in the backyard, the wind gently rustling the dry leaves. "Do you really want to know?" she asked, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Emily nodded, half anxious, half scared. "Then sit tight, dear. Not everything we know about our family is true," Eleanor began. "Your mother was an incredible woman, but she kept secrets too big for her own heart." Emily frowned. "Secrets?" Eleanor took a deep breath. "Yes. And the first of them has to do with your father." Emily was silent. "My father died when I was a child." Eleanor nodded. "Yes, he did. But he wasn't the man you think he was." Emily's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Eleanor closed her eyes for a moment. "George was my husband before he was hers." The sentence fell like a bolt of lightning. Emily went white. "Is this a joke?" Eleanor grabbed her hand. "No, dear. I married George in 1963. But after 3 years, he left. Said he needed to find himself again. He never came back." Emily couldn't breathe properly. "Years later, I found out he married your mother," Eleanor said, her voice shaking. "She never told me. She never said anything. I only found out when I received the invitation to his funeral." Emily trembled. "My God, you knew this all along?" Eleanor nodded. "And I kept it to myself out of respect." In the living room, Josh walked in just in time. "What are you guys talking about?" Emily stood up, her eyes red. "Josh, our dad. He was married to your aunt first." Josh froze. "This is crazy." Eleanor stood slowly. "I have proof. Letters. Photos. A marriage certificate. I'm not lying." Josh left without saying anything. Rebecca, who had been listening at the door, came in angrily. "You want to destroy this family? Is that it?" Eleanor glared. "I'm trying to free you." Rebecca laughed humorlessly. "Free you from what?" "From the past. You should have stayed there." She slammed the door shut. The wind rattled the window. That night, Emily didn't sleep. She sifted through old photos, trying to find some clue. Everything looked the same. But now it had a different meaning. She was there all along, she thought. She remembered a specific photo, from the day her father took them to the zoo. In the background, a woman. Looking. Eleanor. Emily went to her aunt's room. "You were there, weren't you? At the zoo?" Eleanor nodded. "Yes. I wanted to see him from afar. See if he was happy. See if his mother made him smile." Emily was moved. "That's so sad." Eleanor replied. "Not anymore. Because now I see you. And that too is love." Meanwhile, Josh left to meet with the construction company's lawyer. "The paperwork is ready," the man said. "It just needs the other heirs' signatures." Josh hesitated. He thought of Eleanor. He thought of Emily. "I'll think about it," he replied. But deep down, he knew something was breaking inside him. The next day, Eleanor prepared a special tea. Emily was with her. "Today, I want to show you something I've never shown anyone." She opened a box of audio tapes. "They're recordings. I recorded everything. My conversations, my thoughts, my prayers. A way to keep from going crazy." Emily listened to a tape. Eleanor's young voice said, "Today I dreamed about George." He smiled. "So did I. But I woke up alone. Again." Emily cried. "Auntie, this is too much." Eleanor held her hand. "I kept all this because I knew, one day, someone would need to hear it." And that day had come. At the same moment, Rebecca found a letter hidden in her mother's closet. She read it quickly, then stopped halfway through. "Dear Eleanor, forgive me." Her eyes widened. Mom was begging for forgiveness. She confessed to hiding the truth. She said she was afraid of losing George. And that she had always loved her sister. Rebecca was floored. She ran to her aunt's room, where Emily was still listening to the tapes. "I found this." She handed over the letter. Eleanor read it silently. Tears streamed down her face. "She wrote this, and never sent it to me." Emily hugged her aunt. Rebecca sat on the floor. For the first time, speechless. Josh was in his car at the time, parked in front of the church. He didn't go in. He stared at the building for several minutes. Something was bothering him. He remembered the Bible verse, his mother's voice, Eleanor's look. He picked up his cell phone. He called someone. "Judge Parker, we need to talk." Later, Eleanor gathered the three of them in the living room. "I didn't come here just to see you. I came because your mother wrote me a letter before she died, and she asked me to take care of you. Not from afar, up close. Because she knew the pain would come. And it did." Emily wept. Rebecca lowered her head. Josh listened in silence. Eleanor took the original letter. She read it aloud. Words of pain, of longing, of regret. Her sister asked Eleanor to forgive George. She asked her not to let her children fall into darkness. And at the end, a request: take care of them as if they were yours. Because, deep down they are. Josh stood. "It's a lot to process." Eleanor nodded. "I know." He left. Emily and Rebecca stayed. "Auntie, what do you want us to do with all this?" Eleanor smiled. "Just listen to your heart. And ask God to cleanse what's left inside. He always does. Always." That night, Emily dreamed of her mother. She smiled in a field of flowers and said, "Thank you for listening." She woke up crying. She went to her aunt's room and lay down beside her. "Thank you for staying." Eleanor stroked her hair. "I didn't leave, dear. I was just waiting for you to call me back." Rebecca woke early, made coffee, and left a note. "I'm sorry about yesterday." Josh left before everyone else, but this time he left the door open. Eleanor took a deep breath. The house felt different, as if the air had changed. But she knew there was more to come. Because the truth is only the beginning, never the end. It was a Friday night when the house grew quieter than usual. Emily had left for a church retreat. Eleanor was sleeping early. And Josh and Rebecca were locked in the living room with muffled voices. Papers, numbers, whispers. A plan was being born there. A plan no heart should have conceived. Josh was determined. "She needs to go," he said firmly. Rebecca agreed. "She's messing with everything, and everyone too much." They weren't just talking about the inheritance. They were talking about pride, about old hurts, and fear. Fear that Eleanor knew even more than she'd already told. They prepared everything meticulously. They found a nursing home outside the city, in Des Moines. A nice place on the outside, but with a dubious reputation. They called and filled out forms. "She doesn't need to know until the last minute," Josh said. Rebecca smiled. "She'll think it's just a trip." The next day, Eleanor woke early. She made pancakes. She wrote a note to Emily, still absent. "God bless you on this retreat. I'll be here waiting, as I always have been." Josh and Rebecca ate breakfast in silence. When she went for a walk, they hid her Bible and her box of letters. "We can't leave anything connecting her to this house," Rebecca said. "We have to make it look like it was her idea." Josh didn't answer. Deep down, something was bothering him. But he continued. Guilt hadn't yet overcome ego. And ego is one of the greatest enemies of regret. On the way back, Eleanor stopped at the local florist. She bought a small vase of lilies. "For Emily's room," she told the clerk. "She loves white flowers." She smiled. She paid calmly. She walked back with the sun touching her face. Little did she know it would be her last day on that sidewalk. That afternoon, Josh entered his aunt's room with an awkward smile. "Auntie, we wanted to take you somewhere beautiful. For a walk. Clear your mind." Eleanor smiled. "How sweet." Rebecca appeared soon after with a packed suitcase. "We took your favorite things." Eleanor looked suspicious. The atmosphere in the car was tense. Eleanor tried to make conversation. "Remember when we used to go to Michigan in the summer?" Josh just drove. Rebecca pretended to look at her phone. "Everything's changed, hasn't it?" Eleanor asked. Neither of them responded. The silence was a cruel confirmation. And fate, even more so. Arriving at the location, Eleanor felt a chill. It was a tall building with small windows and an iron gate. "Here." Josh smiled tightly. "It's temporary. So you can get some rest." An attendant appeared with a clipboard. "Full name." Eleanor hesitated. "Is that really what I think?" Rebecca grabbed her arm. "It's best for everyone." Eleanor pulled her hand back. "Are you leaving me here?" Josh couldn't meet her eyes. "It's just for a while, Auntie." Eleanor didn't cry. She just looked deep into their eyes. "You don't know what you just did." The attendant took the suitcase. Rebecca signed the paperwork. Josh got into the car without looking back. Eleanor was led inside with slow steps. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She just walked as if accepting the cross. And yet, the sky seemed darker in that moment. Back at home, Josh was restless. Rebecca tried to justify everything. She was going to end up hurting us. It was for the best. But even she didn't fully believe it. The phone rang. It was Emily. "I'm coming back tomorrow. Give your aunt a kiss for me." Josh hung up, unsure of what to say. The weight of the lie grew. The next morning, Emily arrived, smiling. "Aunt." Silence. "Aunt Eleanor?" No one answered. Josh appeared and tried to hide it. "She went to rest for a few days." Emily frowned. "Rest where?" Rebecca replied. "Somewhere. A spa. She needs to relax." Emily was shocked. "You did what?" Emily ran to her aunt's room. Everything was empty. No Bible. No photos. No flowers. "No, you didn't." She picked up the phone and called the number she'd found in an old note. They answered. "Hello, this is La Vida Serena. How can I help you?" Emily hung up, her hands shaking. "You committed her without warning," she shouted. Josh tried to justify himself. "She was messing with everything too much. With us." Emily replied. "She was healing us." Rebecca exploded. "She was judging us." Emily ran out. She got in her car and drove straight to Des Moines. Upon arriving, she asked to see her aunt. She was taken to a small room with a window that barely opened. Eleanor sat, staring into space. When she saw Emily, she smiled. "I knew you would come." Emily hugged her tightly. "Forgive me. I didn't know." Eleanor stroked her hair. "You heard me. This is already a lot." Emily tried to convince the administration to let her leave. "She's not sick." But the signed documents said otherwise. She was admitted with her family's consent. The only way to leave is by court order. Emily left in tears. And in that moment, she made a call that would change everything. On the other end of the line, a familiar voice answered. "Judge Parker." Emily explained everything. Details. Dates. Names. The judge listened in silence. Finally he said, "You can come to my chambers tomorrow at 9. Emily took a deep breath. "Thank you, sir." The tables were turning. And no one could have imagined just how much. That night, Josh dreamed of his mother. She looked at him with sad eyes. "You betrayed our family's trust." He woke sweating. He stared at the dark ceiling. And he felt, for the first time, that something very wrong had been done. But maybe it was too late. Rebecca, at that very moment, was writing in her journal. I know we made a mistake. But why does it hurt so much if it was the right thing to do? The words felt heavy. The sound of the wind blew against the windows, like a warning. And inside, guilt spread like smoke in a closed room. Eleanor, alone in her room at home, read a verse in her head. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. She closed her eyes. She wasn't praying for justice. She was praying for mercy. She knew God saw everything. And that was enough. The morning after their admission, Josh and Rebecca were strangely calm. Coffee was on the table, the TV was on, and they were laughing at an old show. It was as if the house had been cleansed of a disturbing presence. Now we can live in peace, Rebecca said. But the peace was short-lived. At 10:03 a.m., the landline rang. An unfamiliar number was displayed. Josh answered. Hello. The voice on the other end was deep and measured. Mr. Joshua Carter? This is Judge Parker. Josh froze. Yes, it's me. The judge continued. I've received a serious complaint. We need to talk urgently. Josh tried to hide his nervousness. About what? The judge was blunt. About Mrs. Eleanor May Carter, and the possible misuse of authority for forced confinement. Rebecca stared at him, uncomprehending. Josh stammered. But it was a family decision. The answer was short. We'll meet today at 2. When he hung up, Josh was white. Rebecca asked. What was that? He replied tensely. Emily. She called the judge. Rebecca's face went blank. But what about the papers? The signature. Josh looked at the floor. None of this carries any weight if it's considered bad faith. We may have crossed a line. Meanwhile, Emily arrived at the judge's chambers with a copy of her mother's letter, audio recordings of her conversations with Eleanor, and photos of the house before the move. The judge read, listened, and finally said, You did the right thing. Let's get this straight. Emily cried with relief. She doesn't deserve to be locked up. The judge nodded. No one deserves to be silenced. At 2 o'clock sharp, Josh and Rebecca entered the local courthouse, palms sweaty, eyes shifting. The judge was serious. You signed off on Mrs. Eleanor Carter's commitment based on what medical grounds? Rebecca tried to speak. Josh interrupted. She was emotionally distressing the family. The judge raised an eyebrow. Emotionally disturb? Or confront the truth? Silence. The judge opened an envelope. I have proof here that Eleanor was, in fact, one of the rightful owners of the house. Rebecca's eyes widened. Josh sat down. That can't be right. The judge continued. She was a co-heir with her sister. And upon her death, she automatically inherited 50% of the estate. Rebecca whispered. So, the house was hers too? The judge nodded. Yes. And you kicked her out of her own home. That's serious. Very serious. Josh tried to argue. We didn't know. The judge was firm. Ignorance is no legal excuse. And the most worrying thing is intent. He then handed over copies of messages exchanged between Josh and the developer. You were selling the house without informing the other owner. That's fraud. Rebecca started to cry. Is she going to sue us? The judge was blunt. She hasn't asked for that yet. But she asked for something that surprised me. Josh asked. What? The judge replied. She asked that you not be punished. That you learn. That you get another chance. As long as you acknowledge your mistake. Shame fell like a blanket over them both. Rebecca left the room trembling. Josh stared at the judge, unsure of what to say. You have 24 hours to remove Eleanor from the home and bring her back. And I recommend you do it with dignity. Because, legally, she can kick you out. On the way home, Rebecca was silent. Josh drove without saying a word. The world they had built around pride and control was beginning to crumble. She had a right. And we acted like she was a nuisance. Rebecca replied, "Are we monsters?" Josh replied, "No, but we were blind." Emily received the news with relief. Thank God. She ran home and got her aunt. Eleanor, serene as ever, picked up a suitcase and said, "God has done justice. But the greatest justice is yet to come." Emily smiled. "Do you want to come back?" Eleanor replied, "I want to come back to teach. And to love." On the way back, Emily told her everything. Eleanor just listened. "They're broken, Auntie." Eleanor replied, "Sometimes God needs to break to rebuild." They arrived home in the early evening. Josh opened the door. He looked at Eleanor. And with tears in his eyes he said, "Forgive me." Eleanor didn't respond with words. She just opened her arms and hugged him. A silent hug. Warm. Painful. Redeeming. Rebecca appeared on the stairs. She stopped. She looked. She descended slowly. And approached. "Auntie, I was cruel." Eleanor touched his face. "But you can still be light." That night, there was no party. But there was silence. A healing silence. Emily made tea. Eleanor sat on the sofa with the three of them around her. And she told stories of her youth. Of her sister. Of her mistakes. Of her blessings. And most of all, of the invisible miracles that only God can perform. At the end of the night, Eleanor said something no one would forget. A house isn't made of bricks. It's made of memories. And the memories we build through pain can become a foundation too. Josh and Rebecca wept. Emily held her aunt's hand. But in everyone's hearts, fear still lingered. Because Eleanor didn't tell everything. There was still a secret. Something not even the judge knew. Something written on a piece of paper. Sealed with a name. A will. A destiny. And that destiny would change everything again. The following days were eerily calm. Eleanor took her room back. Emily reorganized the kitchen. Josh started helping with the chores. Rebecca spent more time in silence, reading the Bible she found under her bed. But everyone knew the storm wasn't over yet. One gray morning, Eleanor woke early. She went to the attic. She took out a blue box, locked with an old padlock. She sat on the floor. She took a deep breath. She opened it. Inside were letters, photos, and a thick envelope with a notarial seal. In the corner, a date, February 2015. It was the will. But it wasn't just any will. It was a second version, rewritten after her sister's death. In it, Eleanor declared that, should she die, the entire portion of the house she inherited, and all remaining assets, would go to a single person. One that demonstrated true love, not interest. She read the entire document in silence. She remembered the day she'd written it, crying, sitting on a church pew. The pastor had said, "Leave something that teaches, not divides." And Eleanor wanted to teach. To teach that true inheritance isn't about good. It's about kindness. It's about fidelity. It's about heart. She put the envelope away. It wasn't time yet. But she knew she would have to show it soon. And that would change everything. That afternoon, she called Emily over to talk. "I want to show you something, but not yet. I want you to watch your brothers for a while longer." Emily, confused, simply said, "Okay, Auntie." Meanwhile, Josh was being pressured by the construction company. "Either you convince the other heirs, or the contract will be nullified." He hesitated. For the first time, he hesitated. He called his lawyer and asked for more time. "I'm reconsidering." On the other end of the line, there was silence. Josh didn't know it, but he was being recorded. Rebecca began visiting the orphanage with Eleanor. They helped serve meals and fold clothes. One afternoon, a curly-haired girl hugged Rebecca and said, "You look like a sad princess." Rebecca laughed. "Maybe because I was an arrogant queen." And she cried. In that moment, something broke inside her. Eleanor watched everything silently, as if watching each person's heart being tested. Emily was light. Josh struggled with the shadow of guilt. Rebecca was surrendering to the truth. But time was running out, and the contents of the will burned like a hidden fire. It was time. One Sunday afternoon, Eleanor asked the three of them to gather in the living room. They were all tense. She held the blue envelope. "Today I'm going to show you something I've hidden for a long time. And before you ask, I hid it out of love. Because some truths only mature when the heart is ready." She opened the will. She read it aloud. All three of their eyes widened. Emily held back tears. Josh froze. Rebecca murmured, "You tested us." Eleanor nodded. "I did. Because this house couldn't fall into the wrong hands. It was built with love. It needs to live with love." Josh stood up. "So, can you take everything from us?" Eleanor looked at him firmly. "I don't want to take it away. I want you to choose. Choose what's worth more, a home, or a clear conscience." Rebecca whispered, "I prefer peace." Emily wept. "Auntie, all of this is bigger than us." Eleanor then revealed the final clause. "The beneficiary of this inheritance will be the one whose name I handwrite, at the time I feel the Spirit of God so indicate." Josh was stunned. "You mean you haven't even chosen yet?" Eleanor smiled. "Not yet. But I'm close." That night, each of them went to their rooms carrying more than guilt, carrying doubt, expectation, fear. Emily prayed for hours. Josh reread the messages from the construction company and felt sick. Rebecca wrote in her journal, "If I'm not the chosen one, may I at least be forgiven." Eleanor sat on the old sofa and stared out the window at the sky. It was starry. She picked up a pen. The blank will lay before her. She wanted to write, but she couldn't. She whispered, "Show me, Lord. Show me their truth." And she fell asleep there, the document still intact. The next day, a surprise. A letter arrived in the mail. Addressed to Eleanor. The sender? George. "That's impossible," Emily said. Eleanor opened the letter with trembling hands. It was a letter written before her death, left with a lawyer to be delivered if Eleanor was found alive. Inside the letter, George asked for forgiveness. He confessed his fear, his flight, his divided love. And he said a sentence that froze everyone. "If you ever have to choose who should inherit what we built together, choose the one whose heart most resembles yours." Eleanor wept. The signal was clear. That night, Eleanor wrote a name in the will. Just one. Then she locked the document again. She hid it. The next day, she gathered everyone in the backyard. "You've shown me who you are. And I'm grateful for that." Josh wanted to ask. Rebecca hesitated. Emily just smiled. And Eleanor concluded, "God has already decided." But she didn't reveal her name. Not yet. Because the will would only be opened after her passing. And what no one knew was that Eleanor had already received a diagnosis. Her days were numbered. A small tumor. Silent. Advanced. Inoperable. She decided not to reveal it. Not yet. Time passed. The siblings began to get along better. They learned to share tasks, memories, and even silences. The house was renovated with the help of the three. Eleanor smiled as she saw the bricks get new paint. Maybe now, it will be a home. But deep down time was a silent hourglass. One Sunday at Mass, Eleanor was moved by the sermon. "The true inheritance is the love you plant and leave in others." She squeezed Emily's hand. "The time is coming." Emily didn't understand. Only later, reading her aunt's Bible, did she find a handwritten sentence. "If I go tomorrow, love one another." That is enough. It was a sunny Tuesday when Mr. Harold knocked on the door. A man in a beige hat, sunglasses, and a hand-carved wooden cane. Josh answered, confused. Good morning. Can I help you? Harold smiled. Actually, I'm the one who came to help you. May I come in? Emily recognized him immediately. Mr. Harold? You lived on the same street as your aunt in Texas. He nodded. Exactly. I was her neighbor for over 20 years. She asked me for something, and I think now is the time to deliver. Josh and Rebecca exchanged glances. Emily invited him to sit down. Harold opened a leather pouch and pulled out a thick manila envelope. She gave this to me on a rainy day, with teary eyes and a firm voice. She said, don't give it to me until I get back home to Cedar Rapids. When everything seems perfectly calm, but there are still clouds in the sky. He smiled. I think that's now. Inside the envelope were old photos, contracts, and a blue-covered notebook with the name Eleanor handwritten on it. Emily opened the notebook. Pages and pages of notes. Memories. Records. And confessions. Confessions that changed everything. She knew she was sick for years. Harold nodded. She didn't want you to know. She wanted to live each day with you intensely. She wanted to be sure that forgiveness was real. And that love was true. Rebecca began to cry. She hid all of this. Harold looked at her tenderly. Because you were still growing inside. Josh picked up one of the photos. It was a young Eleanor, smiling at a picnic with George and her sister. On the back was a handwritten phrase. That day, we were family. Even without knowing it. Josh swallowed hard. Harold continued. She told me that day was the last day she believed in love, until you were born. Emily read the notes quietly. January 2010. Today I dreamed of the three of them. They were adults. They were fighting. But a light surrounded them. God showed me that one day, they would understand. She paused, overcome with emotion. She foresaw all this. Harold nodded. Her faith was greater than her fear. Rebecca found a folded page. She opened it. It was a prayer written by Eleanor. Lord, if I must suffer so they may learn to love, so be it. May my body wear out, but may their souls flourish. For they are more precious than my pain. No one could hold back the tears. Harold then revealed something else. She also left me a video. She asked me to show it only if I saw true remorse in your eyes. He looked at each of them carefully. And I see it. Clearly. He took a flash drive from his pocket and handed it to Emily. Show it to me when you're ready. That night, the three of them gathered in the living room. The silence was absolute. Emily plugged the flash drive into the TV. Eleanor's image appeared. Smiling. If you're seeing this, it's because forgiveness has won. She looked directly into the camera. And if forgiveness has won, then I can go in peace. She told him about her illness. About the time she hid her pain. About the nights she prayed without strength. And about how each of them was a part of her heart. Josh, you've always been strong. But you never wanted to appear vulnerable. God loves even your silences. Rebecca, you're intense. But you need to love without fear. Emily, you get it. If I have left anything, let it not be a house, nor a will. Let it be an echo of God's grace. And if that echo touches someone, then my life was worth it. The screen went black. Silence. And tears. Rebecca hugged Emily. Josh fell to his knees. No sound. Only the sound of a heart breaking and healing at the same time. The next day, Harold returned. He held a plant in his hands. Eleanor gave me this too. She said it was a cutting from the same lily that grew in your mother's yard. He handed it to Emily. She asked you to plant it together. A new beginning. Really. They planted the seedling that very day. hands in the dirt, tears streaming down their faces. Rebecca said, "I feel like she's still here." Harold smiled. "She is. Because people like Eleanor don't go away. They grow into roots," Emily whispered, "and into flowers." As they dug, Josh found something unexpected, an old ring, wrapped in cloth in the earth. It belonged to his mother. Eleanor must have buried it there years ago. Inside was a small inscription, "For the right heart, at the right time." Emily held the ring up. "I think now is that time." That night, Harold left. But before he did, he left one last note. "When love is greater than pain, the inheritance will be complete." Josh read it aloud. "I don't understand everything, but I feel like we're on the right path now." Rebecca nodded. "And maybe that's the miracle." It was raining outside. The house was silent, as if breathing slowly. Emily was organizing the living room shelves when she spotted Eleanor's old Bible. Thick, leather-bound, with gold markings worn by time. She picked it up carefully, as if holding a reliquary. Her faith lived here. Rebecca entered the room, wiping her eyes. "Can I stay here for a while?" Emily nodded. "Sure." They sat together on the rug, the Bible between them. Emily began to leaf through it slowly. Among the Psalms and Proverbs were dried flowers, pen marks, and then a yellowed envelope. In the corner of the envelope, handwritten, were just 3 words. "To the one who forgives." Rebecca froze. Emily looked her in the eye. "Would you like to open it?" Rebecca took a deep breath. "I need to." Her hands trembled as she tore open the seal. Inside, a letter. A short text, but full of soul. And the signature, "Eleanor. If you're reading this, it's because you chose to love despite the pain, to forgive despite the injustice, and to move on despite the fear. This is living faith. This is the most precious inheritance. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I watched you grow, and I always believed in who you could be." Rebecca wept silently. Emily hugged her sister. "She believed in you all along." Rebecca shook her head, her eyes full. "And I treated her like a weight. Like a burden. Like her past erased her worth." Emily whispered. "But she never erased yours." On the back of the letter, Eleanor wrote a single sentence in shaky handwriting. "The cross you carry could be the very piece of wood that will lift you up." Rebecca read it 3 times. "It's like she knows what I carry inside." Emily squeezed her hand. Because she carried the same thing. That night was different. Rebecca went to her aunt's room, now empty. She sat in the chair where she usually read. She picked up her Bible again. She read aloud the Psalms Eleanor had highlighted. "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Josh entered the room slowly. He saw Rebecca reading, overcome with emotion. "Do you miss her every second too?" Rebecca nodded. "But at the same time, I feel like she's still here. Inside this Bible. Inside us." Josh sat on the floor. Maybe this is what she wanted all along. Over the next few days, Rebecca began reading the Bible every day. Each mark Eleanor made seemed to have a purpose. One verse spoke of healing, another of reconciliation, and one in particular made her pause. "Honor your father and your mother, that you may live long in the land." She wept. "She was my mother of my heart." One Sunday, Rebecca asked to give a testimony at church. She stepped up to the pulpit, nervous. She began by saying, "I've never been good with words, and much less with forgiveness. But a woman taught me that the love that hurts can also heal." And then he told her everything. The story, the guilt, the letter. The temple fell silent. And then, tears. Pastor Mildred walked over to her, took her hands and said, "Today you were not only forgiven, you also set others free who needed to hear it." Rebecca stepped down from the altar feeling light. For the first time in years, without the weight of shame on her shoulders. That afternoon, when she returned home, she found Emily in the garden. "There's something about your face. You look like a different person." Rebecca smiled. "Maybe because I see myself differently now, too." Emily pointed to the flower they had planted with Harold. A new bud had blossomed. "Look who's smiling again." The Bible sat open in the living room. On Psalm 91. It was as if Eleanor still ran the household. Josh read from it every night. Emily copied verses into a notebook. Rebecca wrote prayers on the back of the highlighted pages, as if she wanted to speak directly to her aunt. And maybe she would listen. One day, Emily found Rebecca in her aunt's room, holding a framed photo. It was a picture of the 3 children in the backyard, running with Eleanor. "She always took care of us, even when we didn't know it." Emily nodded. "And now it's our turn to take care of what she left." Josh walked in soon after. I know I messed up more than all of you," Emily replied. "It's not a competition." Rebecca smiled. "What matters is that now, we're on the same side." And in that moment, the 3 of them hugged. For the first time, as a healed family. It was a spring morning when the doorbell rang. Emily was in the kitchen, Rebecca in the garden, and Josh was taking care of the bills. The unexpected sound made the 3 of them look at each other. It was too early for visitors. Rebecca was the one who opened the door. And as she did so, he felt the world spin. At the door stood a tall man with gray hair, a subtle smile, and teary eyes. Beside him stood a young woman with familiar features. "Good morning. My name's Thomas. And this is my daughter, Grace." Rebecca tried to speak, but her voice failed. Emily approached and stopped, frozen. Josh appeared shortly after. Thomas pulled an envelope from his pocket. "I received this letter a little over a month ago. It was from Eleanor. And it said, if she left I should come." Emily took the letter with trembling hands. She read it silently. It was, indeed, Eleanor's handwriting. And at the end, an unexpected sentence: "They need to meet my son." Rebecca nearly fainted. "Son?" Josh murmured. "Eleanor had a son?" Thomas nodded. "I'm the son she gave up for adoption when she was young. We reconnected 5 years ago. She wrote to me for years. And Grace is her granddaughter." Their worlds turned upside down. Emily invited them in. The house seemed to breathe differently. Thomas looked at every detail as if searching for traces of his mother. "She told me everything. And even from afar, she taught me to love you. Because, even if she never said it, you were the children of her heart." Rebecca sat on the couch, still in shock. "She never talked about it." Thomas smiled. "She was scared. Ashamed. But after she came back here, she said she needed to get everything ready. Including showing me to you." Emily started to cry. Josh didn't know where to put his hands. The silence said it all. Grace, Thomas's daughter, pulled something out of her backpack. It was a drawing Eleanor had made. 3 children on a swing under a flowering tree. "She mailed this to me. She said one day I'd understand." Rebecca looked at the image. It was her, Emily, and Josh. Back when everything was still innocent. Thomas then recounted his secret meetings with Eleanor. She would come to Des Moines, quietly. We would spend hours talking. I would hear all about you. About the house. About the heartaches and the triumphs. And always at the end she would say, "I just want them to know they were loved." Josh stood up. He walked over to the bookshelf. He picked up the Bible. He opened it to the will envelope. He took it out. "There's something here that she wrote but never revealed. The name of who would inherit everything." Everyone held their breath. He hesitated. "And now with you here, I think I understand why she never told us." Thomas looked at him in surprise. "I didn't come because of an inheritance. I came because, she asked. And Grace wanted to see the place where Grandma's soul lives to this day. Emily took Grace's hand. Your grandmother was an angel. Even when we didn't deserve it. Rebecca nodded. She sent you here to heal us. Again. Josh handed the will to Thomas. Read it. You'll see that her love knew no bounds. Thomas opened it, read it. He stopped at the last page. There was the name. Handwritten. To Emily. Everyone looked at each other. Emily covered her mouth with her hands. But, why me? Josh smiled, overcome with emotion. Because you were the one who forgave first. The one who listened. The one who believed when no one else did. Rebecca nodded. She knew. She always knew. Emily cried. But all of this, it's too much. I just wish she was back. Grace hugged her. In a way, she's back. For the next few days, Thomas and Grace stayed in town. They helped tend the garden, organized photos, and cooked together. The house was full again. But now, full of purpose. Emily slept with the will beside her bed. Not out of attachment to the paper, but to the promise it represented. One afternoon, over tea in the backyard, Thomas shared a final revelation. Before she left, Eleanor asked me to give her this. It was a small golden key labeled, to the place where it all began. Josh frowned. What could this be? They walked together to the old barn at the back of the property. There, they found a small iron box hidden under loose boards. Inside was a cassette tape, a photo of the entire family, and a piece of fabric with the letter E hand-embroidered on it. Emily held the tape. It's her voice, one last time. They listened to the recording that same night. Eleanor's voice said, If you found this, it's because you understand. Love needs roots, but also wings. Take care of each other. Don't let pain extinguish the gift. Because family isn't just made of blood. It's made of choice. The sky dawned golden. It was as if time had stopped for a moment. Emily woke before everyone else. She sat on the old wooden bench in the backyard. With the Bible on her lap, she read softly. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. She closed her eyes. She felt her aunt's presence. The scent of cinnamon tea, the sound of her soft laughter, the way she folded the napkins. It was all still there. Inside her. Emily knew she needed to do something. Something that would end the cycle. But also open another, even more powerful one. Later, she called Josh and Rebecca in for a chat. She also invited Thomas and Grace. They all sat around the table. Emily placed the will on the table. She chose me. But I can't keep this alone. Josh tried to speak, but Emily continued. I've decided to give it all away. A thick silence fell. Rebecca blinked, confused. Give away everything? Emily nodded. To turn this house into a shelter for abandoned elderly women. Thomas smiled, moved. Grace applauded with her eyes. Josh stood. Are you sure? Emily replied. That's what she would do. And that's how the Eleanor House, a foster home inspired by the faith, dignity, and strength of a woman who chose to love until the end. The announcement of the donation was met with surprise in the city. Some applauded. Some cried. And some found their faith again. Within the first month, 5 women moved into the house. All with painful stories. One had been forgotten by her children. Another, abandoned on a highway. And one of them was named Margie. She had green eyes just like Eleanor's. And she said the same things. I believe God always sends an angel. Emily moved in too. She cared for the ladies as their aunt had cared for them. Josh became a volunteer. Rebecca, a therapist. Thomas and Grace began organizing fundraisers. The house, once filled with sorrow, was now filled with music, prayer, and hope. A divine turnaround in every corner. But there was more. One day, Emily received a mysterious letter. No return address. Inside, a small wooden cross, and a handwritten note. What you did changed the sky. Emily wept. It was Eleanor's handwriting. Thomas confirmed it. She left this letter with me, without you knowing. On the cross, a tiny inscription. Truth. Forgiveness. Love. Emily placed it in the room of every lady who arrived. And each one said the same thing upon touching the cross. I feel like I know this person. It was Eleanor. It was her reflection. It was her breath in every corner of the house. One Sunday, the church was packed for a special service. Cosa Eleanor was honored. Pastor Mildred delivered a powerful sermon. Sometimes God raises up pain, so that from it salvation may be born. Emily walked down the aisle with Grace by her side. She told the story. No one left without being touched. After the service, a woman approached Emily. You don't know me, but I was Eleanor's classmate in high school. She was different. She always said that one day, her pain would become a home for someone. Emily hugged the woman as if she were embracing her own story. The house made headlines in the local newspaper, then on state television. Then a national channel told Eleanor's story. The woman who lost everything, and gave it all away. The video went viral. Thousands of messages poured in. People donated. People offered help. And the most beautiful thing, people fell in love again. Rebecca wrote a book, What I Learned from the Woman Who Forgave Me. It became a bestseller among women over 60. Josh founded a non-profit for children seeking to reconcile with their elderly parents. Thomas began giving lectures on reconnection. And Grace. She became a missionary. Emily, for her part, simply lived. She lived each day with the peace of knowing she did the right thing. She never sought applause. She never sought recognition. She simply wanted to honor the faith she had seen firsthand. And every night before bed, she still read the same page of the Bible. There is a time for every purpose. One of those nights, she dreamed of Eleanor. She was smiling, sitting in the old rocking chair. You did better than I imagined. Emily cried in the dream. I miss you. Eleanor replied. You see me every day. I am the light on the porch, the smell of tea, and the miracle that never ended. And now, after all this, tell me, how do we continue to be the same person after a story like this? Because this isn't just Aunt Eleanor's story, nor just Emily's, Josh's, Rebecca's, or Thomas's. This is the story of all of us, of what we hold in our hearts, of what hurts, but also of what heals. Of the pain that becomes a prayer. Of forgiveness that becomes a bridge. Of loss that becomes a miracle. How many times have we pushed away those who only wanted to love? How many times have we chosen pride over a hug? And how many blessings have we lost, just because we didn't listen with our hearts? If this story touched you in any way, I want to invite you to reflect. Have you forgiven those who hurt you? Have you ever allowed yourself to start over? Have you ever said, I love you without fear? And if you've ever felt something similar to what you saw here, tell me, I want to know. Tell me in the comments. What would you do if it were at home? Would you dare to act like Emily? Have you ever been Eleanor in someone's life? And if this story spoke to you, if it moved you, if it reminded you of someone, or made you look to the sky with more faith, then please, subscribe here to the channel and turn on the notification bell. This helps me continue bringing you stories like this, which touch hearts and transform lives. May God bless you with much wisdom, discernment, and above all, love. Love to listen. Love to forgive. Love to start over. And may you never ever lose faith that there is still time. Time to heal, time to love, and time to come home.